Oh, there we go.
We're good? All right, great. All right, so let's call to order at 6:09. We are going to skip the Board of Trustees liaison introduction. Cheryl sent me a message that she's not feeling well, so she is not gonna be here. I told her we'd send her the minutes and she will see us next month. So attendance roll call.
Is the mic on? Okay.
Is that, yeah,
Drag your switch to.
it's on the zero, or on the, that should be on, right?
Up, the one.
There it
There you
goes,
go.
yeah, all right,
I always get those mixed up.
yeah.
Okay, Carolyn here, Dwight,
Present.
Mark,
Is not, but he let me know he wouldn't be here.
Adam,
Here.
Cheryl,
She also let me know she wouldn't be here.
and Leslie.
Here.
All right. So we get approval of the agenda, as submitted.
Move that
We
read.
approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, approval of minutes from December 11th. Mark did not send them out, so let's table that. And I will ask him when he's back in town tomorrow to send those out. I thought he had sent them out, right after the meeting like he did with the November ones, but I couldn't find them this weekend when I was looking for them.
Okay.
And then they've been on vacation, so,
She looks-
so I will table that and I'll ask him to resend or to send those out. And we will just approve December and January, in the February meeting. So any disclosure of conflicts of interest?
Nope.
No. All right, any public comment limited to 3 minutes related to items germane to the agenda?
Maybe.
All right.
I'm afraid of this thing. It went off the last time I tried to turn it on.
There it goes.
There. Hi, Ray Kotke, Park Lake Road. I came tonight because I saw you guys were doing a brainstorming session about things, so I just thought I'd try to let you in on what we're doing on the planning commission and also Friends of Park Lake and blah, blah, blah. One of the things was, Carolyn and some of our neighbors had asked about public access at the lake at the end of Duluth Street. And so I put in a call for the road commission and asked them whose purview is that to make that delineation proper, because right now it's all grass, and there have been several individuals down there that have mentioned the one of the private landowners at the very end on the east side of Duluth harasses people at times and isn't very nice. And he said he owned it at first all the way to the lake, and he didn't. Ironically, I kind of live almost at the end of Duluth also, but off from Park Lake Road. And I've noticed that sometimes people have had problems down there. But anyway, Mark Trotter, he said he will determine whether or not it would be the county that would improve that to make it, an actual path down to the lake, or if DPW was gonna, have the right or the obligation to do it, if you will, or we could even get some volunteers together. He said, we'll give you the blessing if you guys wanna do that. But he said, let me get a ruling on it first to see. So I wanted to make sure you guys knew that. And the other thing is, in case you didn't know, there's a nesting pair of eagles on the lake. There's been a little bit of kerfuffle about that with the proposed trailhead being just about where they're nesting. And so if and when you guys get into that with the delineated trailhead area, there may be a little bit of moving around we may have to do to give them, the space that eagles need. Federal law says you have to be at least 330 feet away from a nesting pair, so, and I saw something about 600 feet, so, in regards to improvements or building. So that's something that you may want to keep in mind. One other brainstorming thing, you had talked about future parks and things of that nature. There's about a 5-acre parcel, Ben, you probably know about it, that's over on Slate Road. We always just called it the sledding hill, and I know the cross-country guys run on it too. I was actually looking at some planning commission notes from the 70s, And they actually had a plan to put a skating rink and a sledding hill there. And so that's, and then right now on the planning commission, we're determining, what the township, or, of the parcels that the township owns, which incidentally is, I think, up to 65 now, separate parcels. But that one, I think, is, if we don't want to sell it, if the township decides they don't want to sell it, that could be a very nice place for recreational activities. And then, like I say, it's about 5 acres. And the other one that we're looking at was Ben, you might be able to put some more thought into this, but that, I believe it's listed as 16.8 acres where I think you put cuttings and stuff down there north Webster Road.
Oh, that-
here. You probably of all people know more about that than anybody, so nobody seems to know that the township owns that, so I said, well, if we're looking at selling land or divesting, but maybe that's something we should look at, but you would be the one that would lend your credence to whether or not, it needs to be retained or improved or, possibly put on the market. And then there's the other parcels, a great deal of them, used to be called Polyaqua Shores, which is a 1920s subdivision, if you will, that was proposed and platted, and very, very few were ever sold. And I actually found from 1929 a State Journal article that says the developer planted bags of gold in 3 plots. There's 48 plats there, or plots. And so if you bought one, you may be fortunate enough to find a bag of gold. I said, why they do anything in the height of the Depression to sell a land? I guess they were like $100 for the parcels. But that's something that, we should all get our heads together too, to see if you want to make that. And in fact, that may be where the trailhead parking area may have to go, if the Eagles are going to stay there. So that's something that you guys will probably want to take on. And the last thing I wanted to say is that I have, over the past 15 years, compiled a great deal of research in regards to the Nature Preserve Trail proposal. And I have a lot of official, if you will, research done on what our, and you're the grant person, so the matching funds that would be available and tangible, if you will. Because I talked to the DNR at the trust fund, and Karen had asked me, she said, isn't there a statute of limitations on the plots that the township purchased, and now they're gonna make, the trail and the nature preserve? She said, isn't there a statute of limitations where that would run out? And so I asked them, and they said, no, that, even if you bought those in the 60s and 70s, you could still utilize that purchase amount for your matching funds, which is great. So right now, it's up to about, the total I have is pretty close to $225,000 that the township has directly put into the areas that would become that nature preserve trail. And I have all of that past conceptual plan and everything. I can just turn it over to you guys if and when you decide to do that. But that's right now, as you all know, is the only, well, I think you have one more now, CIPs that are approved and funded, that you could do some forward work on. And there was, in the 5-year plan, that was one of the reasons I also wanted to speak tonight. In your 5-year Parks and Rec plan, you have the steps in which the proposed trail would come to be, and there was a focus group, future studies and determine what phases, and we literally went through all of that. We had the public hearings, public meetings, and that, may have to be done again, but that would, assist you guys if and when you take that up to do a trust fund grant. But one other thing I wanted to mention is that adjoining the land that the township owns to the south is an 83-acre parcel that the Ides own. And we're in discussion with the Ides on the project right across the road over here. They want to put in about 80 more kind of condos, private dwellings, where that spot is out in front of Somerset that's vacant. So we're talking to them now. I thought maybe I could speak with them to see what at one time they had actually offered to donate that to the township, that 83-acre parcel. And that would allow for trails to go down to the pines and literally all around there, that its elevation is sufficient, and there's even mature hardwood and stuff along in there that would make a beautiful place for trails. But anyway, that's something that I wanted you guys to know about too, because that's be a hell of a feather in our hat if we got an 83-acre donation to the township. Anyway, thank you, that's it. Any questions at all about anything? Again, I want to emphasize that, you know, none of us, Planning Commission, the Friends of Park Lake Advisory, I think we should all get our heads together on this, you know, just, if you got a question, if you don't know about something, you want to know about something, say, call me, and I probably have a file on it. But anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
Yep, now I have to go get pad thai, so I'm gonna take off.
Sounds good.
Thank you. I'm gonna keep this too, then. Thanks.
All right, so moving on to old business, I'm just pulling up the email I got from Taylor today so that I can make sure that I don't misquote her. All right, so next steps for the 5-year Parks and Rec plan is, if you don't all know, at the last Township Board of Trustees meeting, they voted unanimously to approve it. They were all very happy, so it was good all around. So it's due by February 1st, it has to be uploaded, that's the state deadline. So Taylor said she's waiting, just from this morning, that she's waiting on the final version, that had some of the comments that were from the public hearing, some of the comments that the Board of Trustees had that were just minor ones, like no major changes, nothing like that. So they're incorporating those. And after she has the final version, she'll compile all the required documents and submit it, prior to February 1st. So there's not I'll follow up with her this month and make sure, but it sounds like there is no concern, of being able to submit it and all the required documents that go along with it, by February 1st, which is a big deal. So thank you all. Like, that's a huge step to being, one, for this committee, and then also just to be able to, for the township, moving forward. So, thank you all for your work on that. And it feels, it's not in yet, but it feels like that's what we've been working towards for the last year. So it's nice to see it's on its last little hurdle here
Yeah,
before
definitely.
it gets in. So, and if anything changes with that, or which again we're not expecting, I'll let you all know before our next meeting, obviously.
Just a quick question.
Yep.
So in the future, do you think our committee will plan on using like an outside service like that again, or is that something that we'll go back to doing ourselves? Because in the past, when we did it, I know that we always referred back to our old one, and so we worked off of that to improve the parks throughout and recreation, but then we also used that one to help us make the new one, and I didn't know, would they allow us, like Williams of Work, to use that document to build off of, or would they consider, I don't know, like plagiarizing or something, because we're using like something they put together?
Sure. So my understanding of it would be a few things. So my understanding would be that, yes, we would work off of that in the next one, but that, in my thoughts and opinion would be that we hire a firm again to do we'll still have to do the community engagement pieces, the surveys, the in-person, those types of data gathering, which I think they did a really great job of doing. So, and it wouldn't necessarily be them, it would be the same thing, it would go out for proposals. And then, my understanding would be that is township intellectual property.
It's
That's
our
not,
dollar.
that is the township's thing to do whatever we would like to do
Yeah.
with it. Yeah, that it's not Williams and Brewers, that's your understanding is,
Well, that,
would,
and that, as a general practice, that's certainly true. I mean,
Right.
You could, the contract could have been written differently, but it's hard to get around the fact that it was our dollar, so it's our copyright.
right, yes, yeah.
The reason why I ask is because I know it cost a lot to use them, and so I was thinking like future-wise, if we were gonna write it ourselves, that maybe us holding those things or having one of us volunteer to go to like the farmer's market or, somewhere to have public, come there and offer opinions and things like that. We should, once, I know we don't have this one approved yet or sent in, but like submitted, but just future planning that, like, I know that we started working on it, and maybe we should set like guidelines, like, we know that if we have to have this turned in and sent to them by certain dates, and like, just have it written down, cause like if, one of us goes away, we have it in documents, so that way the next people who come and take our place see, this has to be in by this date, this is when you start working it, this is when you start doing your engagements, kind of, just so that they knew, so it didn't fall through. I mean, it wasn't our fault that it fell through, but like, so it doesn't lapse again,
Right. Yeah, so I would say, I think that two things there, I would think, or what I would like to do is, each year as we go forward here, as long as, we are all, and or however this committee looks, that, each year we would be revisiting that at least annually and saying like, okay, these are the parks, these were the goals, this is where we're at, and then, by year 3, we would be thinking about, what's gonna happen in year 4, so that we would be starting that, a year as we go into year 4 or so, or a year and a half remaining on that, that 5-year plan, we would be working on that one, the next iteration of it, so that it would be
Sure.
in
You
there.
could
would
almost
be-
have like a running document of like what's changed, we added a
Yes.
kayak launch, or we added some other playground, or.
Yeah, and that went with goal A,
Yeah,
goal
these are
A, number
checked off the
C,
list
what
here,
year.
and that way the next committee always has something to work from.
Yeah.
As it kind of updating, not, just as a addendum or something to that.
Yep. Yeah, and then as it would be, since a part of that is an inventory, if there are parcels that are bought or sold, or infrastructure put in place at any of the existing ones in there, those would be updated as we go into that next one. And I think, the way that I tend to look at it is that like, if we look at a dollar amount of, and hearing from Karen, and who worked on the previous ones, of the amount of time and work and energy and effort it went into, if we just look at a dollar amount, we can say it cost a lot of money, but if we look at the percentage of a township budget, it's like, what's the township budget now, is it 6 million?
I think it's more than that.
More than that now, right? So if we're saying it's 50K plus or minus, right, of, say it's 7 million, we're talking about less than 1% of the overall township budget. So it's like, we have this pot of, if we just have this number, right, if we say $50,000 or 70, say it's whatever, 5 years from now, it's $75,000, and that sounds like a lot of money as a individual thing, but when we look at it as the portion of that township and what it allows other people to not be sucked into doing, or time sucked
And I
into
think
doing.
staff wrote a big portion of the last one, so there's their time.
Yeah.
They're being paid, so.
Yeah. So,
Anything that, well, obviously stating a personal opinion, anything that we do as a committee or that the Kent Township supports in regards to recreation or the farmer's market, we should be able to tie back to that plan.
definitely.
And so, month to month or whatever, we'll document in the minutes or wherever we want to keep track of it. We should say that we decided to do this, this supports this paragraph of the plan. And if it doesn't, then we need to be looking at how we need to update the plan. Because I don't think we should be doing anything that's not supporting the plan unless we're adding to the plan.
I agree. I mean, that's our guiding document, that if we think of it, we're not a nonprofit, but if we think of in the nonprofit world, if it's like, we don't wanna have mission drift, right, is what they talk about, like, oh, well, there's money over here, let's go chase that money because they said that there's money available, but if it's not in line with, this is, again, it's not a nonprofit, so this isn't our mission, but it is our guiding documents, and so I agree completely with that we should always be, that shouldn't live in a cabinet, or in the electronic cabinet somewhere, and in 4.5 years, we pull it out to update it for next year. I agree, any decisions, and, we should be looking back and saying, this was the results of, this survey question said that people wanted trails, and so we're doing trails or that, or like you said, if there's a large group of people that come and say, in 3 years, we wanna do this, you know, looking back and saying, how does that fit in with that, that 5-year plan?
Something else that comes to my mind from this conversation is like a calendar. Do you have a calendar that you're like kind of cued to, that certain things are coming up at certain times of the year that you wanna like bring to the board, or is that coming from the township, or is there anything? I think it might be a little bit discombobulated because of like during the pandemic and, you know, not getting the park board representative to stay on, so I'm guessing there's no kind of continuity calendar for us, and if there's not, I think maybe we might wanna think about that.
Yeah, I
Like
agree.
a grant.
I agree, and I think that's, you know, kind of the, you know, brainstorming out who we wanna, I think that's part of the background of who do we wanna meet with and what do we want to happen throughout the year. I think that, you know, now that this is in, this was sort of our big heavy lift, and now I feel like we can step back and say, all right, now we've got this. What do we do with it, and how do we do it, and how do we take this 5-year idea and these activities or actions or infrastructure at each of these parks, and then start to, you know, use that table of, or it's not an appendix, but towards the end where it's the table of what's the priorities at which facility or which park or which parcel, and then start to think about how to do that, and then build in the grant, you know, trust fund grants or other grant possibilities.
And like every 4 years, just the park plan has to be done as well. It's
Yeah.
just that should be part of the ongoing calendar.
Yeah, so, I like that idea. Oh. Yeah. All right, so anything else on kind of the nuts and bolts of the 5-year plan? We're good?
Good.
All right, so if we move on to, just a reminder, that I just thought of it since it's the new year, I'll touch base with Taylor. I don't remember when everyone's term expires. There's a document that has that, that I was trying to find through the documents on demand stuff that I couldn't, but I'll figure that out so that everyone knows when our terms are up. I don't know that anyone is up this year. Maybe there might be, except with Kathy, I don't know what she was on, but we do have a vacancy, so if there is anyone, or you run into anyone, or there's anyone that you think would do good that you feel like recruiting, just keep in mind that we do have room to add another person, to this.
Are we allowed to like post that like on like the township Facebook kind of thing, like and say like, cause I just never seen anywhere where it was listed, and I'm sure it says it like if you go to the actual township website, but I don't think very many people like visit that.
Yeah.
So I just didn't know if we could advertise kind of like, hey, we have a vacancy.
Yeah, I think that'd
Okay.
be great to put up on there, and yeah, now
Okay.
you see it on, so it's in the Friday report that Taylor sends out. All of the committees are there, and if there's any vacancies in them, those are listed, so I just see that, on Fridays, just skimming through it.
Right.
But yeah, I think that putting it out there so that people know there's a possibility if anyone is interested, yeah.
Did you say who the trustee was gonna be, who's gonna join us?
It's trustee Kellerman. Yep, so, and she is going to be assigned, which I think it makes sense, to us, to the senior center, and to the, Park Lake Advisory Committee. So that, I mean, I think that makes sense to have some continuity across, you know, those 3 township entities, being the same person, so, yeah.
Great.
All right, so if we move on to new business, and this by no means is like we're gonna do this all in this meeting or anything like that. I just wanted to put it out there. I feel like, just to have some conversations or discussions around it is, you know, as we think about now that this rec plan is going in, you know, the location we heard the most about was the Park Lake in that survey was clearly the Park Lake corridor. And then we've been talking about the Upton Road site as well.
And I'm sorry, Park Lake Corridor, is that the same thing as the trail that we've
No,
talked?
so the Park Lake corridor would be like sorry, you know, as you come around down towards where like the
party store and-
community center, and then the beach, and then the
Like the
Parkland
creamery.
Creamery, and then Wiswasser Park and boat launch, sort of that area. I guess it's sort of an
Northeast side of the
S-ish
lake.
curve.
Yeah. You got the lake right
Oh,
behind
yeah,
you.
right. So. Here, well, I guess we could come back to here, right? Sort of here,
Yeah, basically
around.
Webster to Nichols Road.
yeah. Yeah. So, seems like that is clearly where things have been growing, and that people have concerns about safety in that area and I mean, between the amount that especially since 2020, that Wiswasser and the beach, the amount of use that's gone up in those, you know, the last 4 years, I'd say is dramatic, and so trying to think a little bit ahead. And then, you know, I put a call into Ryan and to Karen, this afternoon. I didn't connect with either of them yet, but I was interested in, you know, something that's been talked about is, like a mini corridor study. And that would be ideal for that, and Williams and Works, not that they would do it, but that is something that they do as well. So, you know, sort of addressing those, you know, safety, growth, pedestrian, bicycling, you know, non-motorized trail stuff, sidewalks, throughout kind of that whole, area. And I think that she, you know, Tanya heard as much cause she brought it up a few times also during the meeting. So I put a call into Ryan and to Karen just to ask them about, you know, if or what kind of corridor studies we've ever had done here. I know early on when we first moved here, so like 2007, 2008, they did some stuff at the corners here, but I think that was mostly just tracking like traffic, and trying to get a number count of vehicles that go through there. But it seems like it seems just like that, if, you know, I don't know how much something like that would cost, but to be able to have an ask for the township, or understand what the process of that ask would be, and if it's something that they are interested in supporting. So, cause I think it ties together, it's it's recreation, it's safety, it's non-motorized activities, it's sort of all of these things that it seems like are converging and a growing population, you know, that are converging at the same time, and that when we're hearing from a lot of different people throughout the community that have excitement and concerns about how best to have that growth. And I think if we could get ahead of it being and help with some smart growth instead of some, you know, organic growth, it might be a good thing. Any thoughts on that?
Didn't DPW have like some ideas and things that they were already kind of in the works on doing? With that new property and clearing out the other side?
Which property?
Well, like where the boat launches, like buying that property there, and then across the street there, where you already works
There's
kind of
been,
like
I mean, there's been some ideas, but there's nothing that's been, you know,
Oh, okay.
decided or solidified. I mean, the kayak launch was one of them. Just improving the area in general, parking lots. The boat launch really is in need of a facelift. Wiswasser parking lot it really needs to have the parking lot. I was kind of disappointed to not see that in the budget this year, that's the main problem, why our playground is being deteriorated. The surface on there is all the limestone that washes out there and the wood chips, and so, there is some improvements that have, you know, I've identified, and, but there's nothing that's been decided that's for sure gonna happen there.
Okay.
You talked about the fishing, pier also, right?
Yeah,
That
moving,
would be
moving that
the-
down there, yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, at this point, they're just ideas. And I would like to, you know, the next step with that, the boat launch is to get all those properties, joined into one, do a boundary adjustment.
Because they're
They're
individual
in,
parcels
there's
right now.
three
is that-
parcels, correct.
Okay,
Wiswasser Park is done.
that's all one, the
That's
two.
all, there was like 7 or 8 parcels in Wiswasser Park
Okay.
itself, and now they're all one parcel.
Okay,
So we need to do the same thing with the boat launch, before we do any infrastructure or,
Who
you know,
does-
sidewalks. What's that?
Who does that work?
That's Beth, our assessor. And you gotta go through a circuit court process but since we own the property and there was an issue with like the end of the road at Webster Road because there's adjacent property owners. In this case, we own it all, so.
There's no adjacent, so it's more
It's
a
a done deal,
process thing.
yeah. Yeah, but
an
you just
approval
gotta go-
process than
right.
a
Yep.
argumentative or contested process. Okay. And that's how it was at Wiswasser also, I'm assuming.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's just a process to work through.
So how do we get that started?
I believe it's already started.
Okay.
So I think that's in Beth's outlook for this year.
Okay.
There's several properties that she's been working on cleaning up and getting surveys and knowing what we actually own. That's her ballpark.
I want to comment on your corridor study and say that it'd be interesting to know who are the users. Are they from Bath or are they from somewhere else? And that, on the lake shore there, or the beach. And I think that the Friends of Park Lake have done a similar but much smaller study, kind of like looking at who are some of the boat users to use the lake. And I think that they found that many people weren't from the immediate area, and so that kind of like ought to like kind of like put up some kind of things to consider as we go forward with the lake and how we maintain it and manage it.
And I think that, you know, some of the survey data from the 5-year plan that has that in there of, you know, if you are, you know, what part of the township are you from? And then which facilities are you using? So I think that we could look at some of the, you know, if we can't figure it out from the data there, we could look back at some of the raw data, and I think they should be able to, I think was that in Qualtrics? Is that what they used? Do you remember? I don't remember either, but we should be able to parse that out, like, we should be able to say like, you know, click user, you know, these are the variables we want residents, we want this facility, and we should be able to back end that together, I would think.
How many people participated in the study?
I think there were 227 or 230, something like that, and they had said anything over 200 was great for our size community, and so I think there's 220 plus for the online survey, and then there's another 100 plus for the 2 in-person ones, so, and I don't know, there's not a way to tell if those were the same people doing it. So if someone filled it out online and then they filled it out at the summer solstice party, but
Rethink
my
that.
thought would be if I wouldn't want to fill out the survey and then fill out the survey again,
Right.
you know, so I mean,
I
you,
already did this.
right, so,
Maybe if we had specific questions, and things that we were wondering, that we could come up with like, write them down and then make our own kind of like little survey and then have Taylor send that out to people who are signing up to get correspondence from us, you know? Send it out to all the people and ask them, like give them the link to Google, whatever it's called, I don't know, my brain's slipping me. I always use SurveyMonkey, but that costs a lot of money for a big number. And so like, but something similar to that, you know, like write down exactly what we're looking for and then send it out so they can write back, and those who were probably interested would write us back, or who it affects, you know, would hopefully write us back. And we could have a better understanding of what they were looking for, or what their direct concerns were, or, you know, something.
yeah. And I think definitely looking at, I mean, I think that, yes, we also have we have a survey that did those things like that we paid a chunk of money for.
Right.
You know, so I think we should look and we've talked about the data that's in there, but we should look at that and see what it, you know, what it says, and then I think reading through more, I mean, I've skimmed through the raw answers at the end of, you know, here's a box, write in whatever your heart desires question, and so, you know, being able to pull some of those out too that are specific to that area, or seeing how many are specific to that area, and if there are, you know, some of them are 1 line, some of them are 4 paragraph answers, so, you know, I can take some time and look through those and and see what we have there and see what sort of makes sense.
I'd like to, you know, I like the idea you're trying to save money, and I like the idea you're like looking at like doing our own research on this. And so as you kind of said that twice, and it kind of like started thinking and click, but like, it would be also be like if somehow we could engage the schools, you know, with like the technology, they have smartphones, you know, some students kind of like senior research project or something, and kind of like incorporate that into like kind of tradition to engage them would be an amazing opportunity too. And we do have a group of Okemos students, hopefully, their like student council volunteer program is gonna do some work on Park Lake, volunteer hours, but, you know, that might be something to I'll keep you informed about, because that could be a really good model for
Yeah.
getting the schools involved. I think it'd be great if they like went out and swimming and collected invasive species out of the lake as research project.
So am I hearing, so we have ideas about what we would like to see at Park Lake improvement wise around that, you know, in that corridor. We have survey data that voices some concern and shows usage that we can pull. Do we think it's worthwhile to see what it would cost to do a mini corridor study there? And try to move forward with that as something that could form the basis for both future growth and development there in line with the 5-year plan and potentially help with some smart growth and safety issues there.
As exciting as it sounds, I have to wonder if, like, it might be something we might wanna, like, kind of put in somebody else's ear and stay more focused on the recreational aspect of it, instead of going into, like, kind of corridor development.
It almost would fit better with the planning commission. I mean, with the corridor, you know, overall development, but, yeah,
We do wanna be a central stakeholder.
we definitely wanna
in
have
that.
input on it.
Right. And the recreation sort of anchors both ends of that space, right? We've got the beach and then we've got, in Wiswasser, well, it extends beyond both of those. I mean, those sort of are I feel like when you come around and you hit the beach fishing area, that sort of is, driving wise, it feels like you are in a different space. And then as you pull away from Wiswasser, you know, you can continue down, you would go back into more residential. So,
Maybe having like a representative from us here go to one of the planning commission's meetings and speak to them about it, you know, we would talk about trying to work with other committees and things and going there and saying, this is what we had talked about, we thought this would be a good idea, what are your thoughts on it, or, you know, kind of thing, just kind of open up the doors about it, or maybe just email, I don't know.
yeah,
I think it's always good to collaborate with other
Yeah,
people, especially when these two, like with the non-motorized plan being so, you know, specific to our recreation area. Now, they kinda go hand in hand.
I think maybe a backdoor communication first, an email to, you know, maybe from you to their
is Dan Kramer?
chief, whoever that is.
I think Dan Kramer's the chair for planning commission, is that right?
I think so.
I think just to
Just to say,
see
hey,
if there's anything already in motion that we haven't heard about, and if there isn't, if there'd be some, you know, they might be receptive to that, and following that, then we can go to their meeting and make a formal.
I do know there was, sorry to interrupt, the county had done some sort of a study, a speed study, and, you know, where would crosswalks be beneficial? And, you know, maybe we base our recreation on, you know, the road itself and how the lay of the land is. What makes sense to put, you know, a crosswalk here, why is it there, you know, oh, cause there's these attractions on the other side of the road, right?
I know,
So,
my very limited experience going to some softball, you know, youth softball games there at Wiswasser Park, parking was a major problem. And I don't know what a solution to that might be, but looking at this, if we have other, you know, talking something further in the agenda, but having a softball complex or places where there's more adequate parking would relieve some of that pressure on there. But that's not, I guess it's not what we're really talking about right now, but it, you know, part of that corridor thing is that I think that
Well,
parking is, you know, puts pressure on that corridor because you get cars stop, you know, parked in the edge of the road and, you know, creating what I felt was, you know, hazardous situations.
And now everybody's enjoying the view too.
right,
Yeah,
I don't know about slowing down, but they're enjoying
I
the
don't
view.
know. I'm trying to figure out which view they're trying to enjoy, but yeah.
all right, so it looks like Carolyn just sent me contact information for that, and I just added it, to email Dan, or if he's the chair, I'll look and see. Email the chair this week and just kind of say, hey, this is,
It said something about Miles, I'm not sure.
Miles is our
Miles is
planner.
the planner.
Oh, okay.
Yep, he's the township planner, so, but I thought it was good when they came to when the planning commission came, to our meeting here, when we started the non-motorized trail in this together, and so I think that that's a good next step. And say that we, yeah, in a way, say that, hey, we're talking about this, we realize it's a bigger planning issue, that sort of two parts, you know, the recreation with the boat launch and fishing and swimming and park are all tied into that, and wondering, yeah, what they are, if they're doing anything, if they're thinking of things, if they've got things in motion. And then, when I talk to Karen and Ryan, or that I can ask them if there's already something, what was the study, or if there was a study, what was it looking at, and, you know, where is that information at, and, yeah. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Sound good?
Yep.
All right, I'll get an email out to him this week, and then, figure out next steps from there. All right, so Upton Road site, so in front of us, we've got something that Ben found from 2003, so, clearly that, you know, people were thinking about this before, and so, you know, I think a lot of people, you know, once they hear about that location, I had a parent at one of our soccer games this weekend come up and start talking to me about facilities and, you know, other facilities and places where something could happen in the township, and, you know,
We have this soccer complex already, correct?
yeah, yeah, he wasn't talking about soccer stuff, so.
Yeah,
as
but
much.
I was just curious, we've got another field on here, is the use, right, and I realize this isn't the set thing,
Right,
but for usage, would there be value to have another soccer field for the township?
you know, what we don't have, what we're doing now is we're using school property for flag football. So having another, you know, you could play soccer on it, you could play football on it, you
Yeah.
could play field hockey on it, you
Okay.
could play whatever, you know, comes down the
It
road.
was a question that
Yeah,
I just didn't know.
So, you know, maybe it's a dog walking area, I don't know.
Right,
This was just something that I know we talked about, you know, consulting somebody to give us you know, what could we use this space for? And this was already kind of on my mind of, you know, what we could use it for. I mentioned a few meetings ago, maybe, I don't know, maybe half a year ago, I don't remember when it was, but, something modeled similar to Mount Hope Park out in Delta Township. And this is almost identical to that. You know, they have multi-use sports facility with a playground, bathroom building, pavilion, you could rent it out. You could, you know, use it for ball tournaments or, you know, I don't know if there's any lights, you know, night game lights on it or not, but, and I see there was 130 some parking spaces, basketball courts, I mean, that's like the whole thing right there.
right.
So I just thought it was kinda cool that we'd already been down this road and, you know, it's been archived for 20 years
Yeah,
and, it just turned up in the nick of time.
And when, the soccer, so this was 2003, was Gary Lane's soccer facility?
I don't think so.
I don't think it was there at that time, right? Okay,
Right.
I didn't. so-
I have,
so that
I
would
didn't
be-
have a small plan of it, but I have a conceptual drawing for Gary Lane soccer field behind us too, if you guys want to look at it. That was also with this.
Okay,
It's basically the same soccer field we have, but without the amenities.
okay. Oh,
Nice, this is awesome. I think this should be, great, and if you decided not to do the soccer field, you could always make one part, maybe like, the football, like Aaron do the flag football, maybe a dog thing like you said, or maybe even like tennis courts from a tennis lover here.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's basketball courts that could double
Yeah.
as that, the multi-use court. You know, from the survey, people wanted walking trails, there's a trail all the way around it.
Right?
and if that was paved, it's accessible, which is also.
Roller,
know,
you can
good-
roll,
You can roll,
walk,
yeah.
roll, ride.
Exactly. And I think about it, Hawk Island, how anytime we're out there, there's always people, they've got that loop around there, no matter what you're not,
Barrier
doing,
free.
there's always people, whether they're running or walking or whatever, rolling, there's always people on that loop around Hawk Island.
Not that I'm against another soccer field, but how about something like a skate park?
Yeah, that was listed on the thing too, I remember that on the survey
There was-
listed Dwight and I kept laughing during the survey because it kept listing, splash pad.
People want a splash pad,
They
that is
really
definitely
do.
a strong feeling.
That would be better over towards Wiswasser, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there, a couple questions about this, is there, public sewer on Upton? There's not, but there is, propane that runs all the way down. Or, I'm sorry, there is
Natural
natural
gas.
gas that runs all the way,
I'm not sure about where the gas mains are at. I know there's no water
okay,
and there's no sewer. Unless, don't quote me on that. I'm
Okay.
not sure about sewer. I know Dutch Hills has its own water system.
it does, okay,
The last hydrant for the township is on M78 and Perry Road on the corner there.
okay,
So that's as close as the city water goes.
okay,
But I know there's an old well on this property.
okay,
It's like a 5 or 6 inch PVC well.
okay,
It's just been capped. I don't know if they pulled the pump or what they did with it when they used that place for a mixing facility for I-69, from my
Okay.
understanding.
okay. So, I know that we have, so we rent property further towards, Clark, and there's the reason we rent there is cause there's natural gas that comes up, but I didn't know if it came, we could just tap into it, they added it like
Yeah,
8
and Miles
years
would,
ago, I
Miles
don't
would
know.
probably be able
Yeah.
to tell us where those are,
Yeah.
those utilities are.
I was just thinking about if, for concessions
Mm-hmm.
and, bathroom, heat, like, those types of things, and then obviously, sewer and or, if there's no sewer, then it's septic and thinking about which is fine, what that looks like, but,
I don't know who came up with this, but I'm glad you found it. It's looks like a great start.
Yeah, I'll have to give credit to Beth. Cause she said, yeah, I think there's a drawing and I know right where it's at. So she went down and grabbed it. I'd never seen it before today.
yeah, so.
Well, we're allowed to get smarter.
Right. So, so something that this doesn't have, which I hear, and I think like you said, we're looking, this is an idea to start with, is, that what people around Lansing want is indoor winter facilities to be able to do multiple types of things. But I know like most of the club soccer right now is scrambling for places to do anything indoor, because there's not enough space. Even warehouse space is at a premium, not available. Like Cap City just started doing some, they're in the old Red Cedar Gymnastics. They just, which is down on Jolly if you go through, Jolly there, and it's back in the industrial park, and it's like they just threw up some turf in there and a couple small goals just to be able to have some type of space. I know, and I'm not saying it has to be for soccer at all, you know, like, I know, but like Hope is supposedly adding a dome, over that field that's right next to cleats there because they have people driving to, you know, Brighton and further, Wixom, Kalamazoo to be able to do
There's
any
a lot
type
of people
indoor-
traveling to do softball in
Yeah.
the wintertime.
Yeah, you know, so,
Like women's basketball, who used to do it here at Bath, we're all going to Holt now.
Okay.
And playing, so.
yeah. And that's not like it's down the road,
Right,
you know, it's.
yeah, and it's not super far away, but it's just,
It's-
you know, something to consider that it's just because the school doesn't have room for us, and it'd be nice to have a facility to be able to do something like that.
Yeah. You know, so then, you know, you start thinking about does, you know, the soccer field, or does one of the baseball fields, or just part of, you know, is there a way, and obviously there's costs that go along with those, you know, building a building and or putting up a dome type thing, you know, but it's like, what is the, you know, revenue look like then for
A
that?
facility like that could be used for a lot of different things besides even just sports,
Mm-hmm.
so.
I know a lot of facilities, I grew up in Metro Detroit, and a lot of the facilities there are, you know, especially in the winter where they've got the space, it's intensity training, it's, agility training. The parent was talking to me about that, you know, like the high school football kids are coming in and playing, you know, high level 7-on-7 agility work in games in the winter. The baseball teams are coming in to use the facilities to pitch or hit. And you know, that's all, and I know there's cost to build it, and it's not, you know, and everything can make sense on paper, but, you know, I think about, you know, revenue generation as well.
I've
Even a place for like-
I'm sorry, I
Okay.
never looked into one, but a lot of those places now are using inflatable surfaces as opposed to a solid building. That could be put up in the fall, taken down in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
And you could use as an outdoor facility in the spring and summer, indoor facility in late fall and winter.
Yeah, the MAC does that for their tennis courts. It's the dome that can go up and get
Yeah.
anchored, and then in the summer it's open. Yeah.
It is a lot of work to put it up, but
Just a lot of hot air.
Yeah.
I was gonna
Right.
say it'd also be a good place maybe, to think about for like seniors to go, to get like, offer them programs during the day to do, like physical activities, a place to walk inside, to get away from the snow and things, and just something to think about as well for them, and, you know, to offer those yoga classes and things. Right now, I think when they offer them, it's at the community center, but, you know, if they had more room, they could always go bigger and offer it to more people and more ages and things, so.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think what we did, not I think what we heard, we did hear from the survey is that, you know, many people are going outside the township for their recreation activities because there are not enough of recreation activities that they're looking for here, and I think, and part of that is tied to not having a facility or facilities to be able to have them, and, you know, if we can think the other way of how do we, you know, have people come, how do we have people in the township have a facility that they can use, but also, you know, external, how do we bring people here, especially this area, you know, I started thinking about, right, like, there's the bagels and the Dunkin' Donuts are open, right, if we have something like this where people are coming, we've gotta have places to eat, or, you know, that type of thing, it's like, you know, that new housing is going up across from the church that's 4 stories, and I'm sure they're gonna try to do mixed use on that first floor, and there's.
yeah, they are.
You know, yeah, and there's another, you know, they've got the next spot already cleared out and leveled, which I'm assuming is the next phase that they're gonna do. You know, it's like that corridor is, you know, and I think about when we go to sport, like our kids' sports tournament things, you know, what it is, it's you know, you go and then you drive down the road and find somewhere to eat, and,
And really, McDonald's is the only thing right now.
yeah. Yeah, there, and then Taco Bell or whatever.
Yeah, oh yeah,
but-
there's Taco Bell.
I was just thinking, yeah.
Big B, but, yeah, you need to have things for people to do when they're there.
Yeah. I mean, I could see people coming and, like you said, if it's this weekend morning and they have a yoga or they have a whatever, and then they go get a bagel or a coffee or a donut or
Or Flora.
or a Flora, or yeah, you know, or a gummy, you know, whatever they, before sport, maybe before they do yoga, I don't
Right?
know.
I mean, whatever floats their boat.
Yeah, you know, it's their jam, so, you know, but yeah, I think, you know, that's clearly that corridor is only, that Saginaw corridor is only gonna grow and, you know, having things like this where people, you know, people can come and recreate.
Yep, I see a plus to like this kind of setup and, you know, an indoor thing. I think they're both really neat options and I'm glad that you found this. It's fun to look at and think about what it could be.
You know, I think about a place too, and so there's I don't think that I think during COVID, I haven't been there since then, but in Wixom, you know, they have an indoor sports facility, and they had a restaurant and, a liquor license in there. And, you know, I would think that if we could have something where, you know, I could envision not the township running a restaurant and a liquor license. I don't think the township would want to get into that, but, you know, if there's
But you can rent the
a
space
fac-
out.
rent the space if some, I mean, that's how it works at Hope, is that, you know, I think Nationals now owns Hope Fields, and then there's the people who used to own it that sold it to them, they own the Cleats restaurant and bar that's there, you know, so they have, I don't know what their MOU or you know, whatever legal agreement it looks like for them, but, you know, they're running that and people have a beer and before their, you know, or after their game, after their adult league games, or while their kids are, you know. That was always nice at Hope, when your kid would play on the field right next to cleats, you could sit at the high tops and have a beer and a burger and watch your kid play, you know, but, you know, it might be something that's worth, you know, I think about kind of what, you know, with the farmer's market, when that's, that year of planning, you know, visited other farmers markets, but also visited other sites, it may be something where we, if people are interested in it, we say, you know, right, there's a place in Wixom, and there's a place in Brighton, and there's a place in Farmington, and there's a place in Kalamazoo, and maybe we, you know, take a field trip, all load in the township van and drive and see sort of what's happening at those places, and, you know, I don't think that we would be a huge competition for, you know, places in Metro Detroit or Kalamazoo, and so, you know, they may even be willing to have some conversations around, you know, what lessons learned or that. Do they wish they would have done, you know, maybe that's a good thing too, to think about, you know, at places where is an indoor facility or where it can be indoor, outdoor, like dome wise, and then ones where there's not one, and kind of, you know, people might say, I wish we wouldn't have done an indoor one, we've got it now, and there's the expense of it, and so we make it work, or I wish we would have done an indoor facility or that, to try to see kind of what, you know, what they learned type thing. Does that sound worthwhile? Is anyone up for field trips? Nodding?
Yeah.
Yeah? Alright, maybe I can work on putting together a kind of, you know, here's within whatever 100-mile radius of here or something, and see what there is out there, and then,
Go on a field trip.
plan some field trips, yeah.
Nice.
So, we can decide, like, this looks like, you know, and then maybe we can just look at their stuff, and once we have the list, you know, I'll just I tend to make bigger lists and then pare it down, right? Then we can say, oh, this one doesn't look like it's something we wanna visit, or this one looks like it does, and start with some emails or phone calls, and then see where that goes. Cool, alright, I'm gonna add that to calendar here, just so I don't forget it.
Ooh, I didn't take notes on any of that conversation.
That's okay,
Oh,
honestly, if it just says like discussion around
Okay.
Upton Road, yeah, we don't have to have it, super detailed like that.
Okay.
If you guys do like this concept, I do recommend you go see Mount Hope Park,
Yeah,
cause it's very, very similar to
Okay.
what this looks like. This is smaller, this is probably, I think there's probably close to 40 acres at Mount Hope.
okay,
So this is probably half the size, but they basically have the same thing, 2 ball fields, a playground, concessions, and soccer fields and parking, so it's just a little bit bigger facility, but
What's your thoughts, Ben? Like, do you envision more something like this, or more of like a,
that's where my head's been at for quite a while. I mean, you know, I'd like to think that I came up with the idea of putting ball fields over there, but apparently I haven't. I'm not the only one. But this is very similar to what I was envisioning going in that space. I know originally, when I first started here talking about this, this property, Becky Goodwin was the Parks and Rec director, and we were talking about finding a space we can use for flag football. And we talked about putting a football field right where this soccer field listed on this drawing is at. And that's kind of when my brain started going towards sports facilities. We don't have our own ball fields. We don't have a basketball court. You know, we don't have these facilities to, have these programs that, you know, we wanna run these programs, but we're borrowing the schools. And this is something I feel that our crew right now could manage the property at. You know, we start putting a big building in with dome, big air handlers and stuff like that, we're gonna have to get some, you know, staff up and learn, you know, or hire, contract it out for maintenance. So,
Yeah.
those are things that we gotta consider too with, you know, we're adding facilities. You know, there's legacy costs that go along with that, maintenance and replacement and,
Well, and I'm not even sure how many acres did you say were?
I think there's about 17 or 18 acres. I don't know if it says it on there.
How much you could put into that size of property?
And this, I mean, this drawing fits it. I mean, pretty well fills that space up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't even think you'd have to dig up the trees you planted, Carolyn.
no?
Yeah, I agree. They're thinking about, you know, facility management and, you know, coordination and programming. I mean, it's also, I think, there's the, you know, DPW side of it, and then I think there's the, you know, recreation staff side of it as well, you know, especially if there's something that is more than seasonal, you know, it's a, you know, someone's gonna have to run that.
Yeah.
It's not a, yeah. you know,
It's not something that we're gonna send a guy over there, you know, a couple days a week to, you know, clean it, or, you know, it's gonna be a constant, if it's a year-round thing.
Yeah.
People renting it out, we'll have to definitely staff up and, you know, take a look at what that looks like.
Yeah, and the same thing, Becca's not gonna run, you know, we're not gonna do the things that she's doing already, plus have this big, you know, other facility that she is running stuff at either, so. Which I think is, you know, would be part of the business plan piece of that would be, yeah. What's the maintenance cost, or what's the, you know, running cost, and then what's the, you know, legacy cost, what's the maintenance cost, what are we gonna have, you know, 10 years from now that needs to be replaced, and, you know, how do we figure out those costs in the, you know, league costs, or rental costs, or, you know, usage costs, all of those things. And I definitely see, you know, it needs the play structure for sure. I can't tell you how many times we go to sporting events, and if there's little, you know,
They're-
little siblings, it's like.
They're getting in
the
trouble
one-
if they're not
Anything,
Yeah.
I
playing
think
on.
would be even bigger.
Yeah, you know, they're like, if there is one, they wanna go right to it, and if there's not, yeah, it's a very much, so. Yeah, there could be, you know, there could be multiple ones, or kids that are playing soccer, kids that are playing softball or baseball, or, yeah. So,
And I think it's a good start anyways.
I agree.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, this is
It's
great.
right around
Thank
the
you for
corner
bringing
from A1. You know, there.
Oh, court
might
one?
be some- Court one, yeah.
Mhm.
Might be able to somehow tie with them.
Yeah,
I don't know what it would be, I'd just say.
Yeah.
but I would also think, and not think, I think it'd be imperative to, you know, if we're gonna do something like this, and think about other facilities that have it, you know, we start thinking about corporate sponsorship, you know, it's the Meyer Field at Bath Township, what, you know, and, or the Sparrow, McLaren,
I
yeah,
like the.
Dart,
The Priority Health has the, down on Jolly and Aurelius, they have an outdoor workout, There's a grant, we actually were approved for it, and we didn't get it in time to explore that idea a little bit more, but it was just, it was an outdoor fitness facility at Wiswasser that I
Oh.
was looking into. Yeah, it was same
And
thing.
that's, yeah, that's a good idea too, is, you know, along this trail have, you know, workout,
Yeah.
exercise.
Like they have down on the
Place-
river, the river trail
benches.
has that in Lansing, they've got the stations every so often. I don't know how much it gets used or doesn't get used, but,
Yeah, I mean, and those were, I mean, those pads, I think the pad was like 40 by 40, so like the size of this room, you know, that wouldn't take up any space on something like this.
right,
And it's something that we could add.
Yeah, it's not
Right.
saying you have to do everything all at once on this either, this could be phased out over, you know, several years.
yeah,
And I think it would most likely have to be with funding.
right,
Oh, yeah.
This is, you know, you're looking at a lot of money there.
And you're
Yeah.
gonna have to start mowing, so.
yeah. Maybe the new Fastener Center will wanna sponsor, you know?
There you go.
That's, you know, think about,
This- They got
That's-
the lug nuts, we can have,
Tell- tell
we can
them
have
put their
bath
name
nuts
in-
here.
right, yeah,
We'll put their name up in Arabic.
yeah, will be good, so, I mean, that's also, next 12 years, it's $500,000 a year that's coming into the township, and then, you know, $1 million plus after that from them, so, you know, there's revenue.
And, you know, this property is a good location, you know, it's right off the highway. It's a developing corridor.
Yeah.
So I think it's a prime piece of real estate that's very doable for us to make something there.
I agree. Like you said, whether that's phased over time or, yeah,
The corporate sponsorship is a good idea, because like you guys were talking about before, all those businesses, all those families going there, those businesses would only, you know, do better from having all those people come in and things like that, so.
yeah,
I think, didn't we buy this from Meyer, or get it from Meyer? Isn't that where they dumped
I'm
all
not
their
sure, they
stuff?
did dump a bunch of, spoils there, like
Okay.
top dirt and stuff they dozed off from the Meyer
from the
building.
site, okay,
There is a hill there, but it's about where the basketball court's at, so you could have a sliding hill there or something. It's not very big, but
Would a place like this generate any revenue of significance through
I think you
league
could- I think
fees
you-
or tournaments?
I think you could. I mean, you look at, I don't know how much money they generate, but, you know, I played in a couple of softball tournaments and they're, you know, $100 a person sometimes for, you know, and it could be $1,000 a team. And, you know, if there's leagues like over in East Lansing, they have softball leagues that, you know, they pay for that facility with the water park, and I'm sure all
Right.
those go into that. I do think if it's a nice enough facility, people will travel to come use it.
I don't think there's enough things going on within Lansing, East Lansing, that it would be well received, that just having another set of fields that they can go to, you know, at a reasonable price, that you keep them busy.
And I'm not saying we're bringing back bath days, but if we had bath days, you know, talking about doing tournaments, you know, like, where I grew up, we had Blueberry Festival, and we had softball tournaments we offered, you know, a soccer tournament, you know, basketball, and all those people came and they had teams, and that would easily bring in, you know, lots of money to help out, you know, with the park and things like that, so, something to think about.
and it's like our kids played in the Williamston 4x4, you know, 4v4 tournament, and then one of them played in the DeWitt Oxrose 4v4 tournament, and like, you know, that's a day, and it was full, and there are a lot of teams there, and it seems like most of the teams, you know, if they're there, they're like, and Bath used to have a 4v4 soccer tournament,
Yes,
right? You
yep.
know, and so it's like, there's enough people doing stuff around
And
that,
even, you know, even when I was a kid growing up playing baseball, you know, we traveled, we played in a tournament in Ovid every year, and Shepherd and Kalamazoo, and like we traveled, you know, we played in a league in St. John's, but we traveled to all these tournaments around, and I think there's usually only 2 or 3 fields there.
okay, yeah,
So, I mean, you could bring some pretty good sized tournaments, you know, 10 teams or something. You get 4 playing at once.
yeah. Well, now there's a part, you know, I think one of the limiting things that used to be in Lansing that's gotten so much better in the last 5 years is hotel rooms, right? I mean, now, not only downtown, now that they're allowed to build hotels downtown since that expired, but, you know, the ones now on Saginaw, going the Marriott, that down by Skyview, and then all the ones out at Eastwood, you know, I mean, it's so easy to get from Eastwood to here, you know, whether it's highway or not highway, but, you know,
You're
there's,
10 minutes.
yeah, there's hotels now, that was always a challenge, you know, so. All right, so I think, so next steps for this would be, I mean, this is a less planning commission, this is more, you know, park facility. So if we're all up for it, I'll do some digging on other facilities. And I think we'll just start generating a list and, figure out how it's best to do it or how we can, you know, I don't wanna, I'll think about open meetings with a Google Doc, I don't know, I'll ask some questions about that, but somewhere where, you know, we could all have access to a document that has the list and, you know, look, addresses and a link or something to those. So if someone does come across, they could always add it in, to it, but I'll start to generate a good one there, and then I think we can start thinking about,
If you need it, I've got a Dropbox account that we can put
do
stuff
that too,
into.
okay, yeah. So,
Now, as far as like grant funding, you know, I think this, I mean, anything outdoor recreation
yeah,
with the DNR trust fund, that's a big ticket.
I agree. So I think yeah, that's the next thing on the agenda. I think if we're interested in something like this, that would be.
We're gonna have to get met.
For sure, yeah, we're not gonna just all, it's not gonna be
Just
just
not
funding.
general fund.
No, you know, so, yeah, so the DNR trust fund grants for something like this are up to 300K. So for property allocation, there's no limit on them. So if we wanted to buy, you know, property, whatever, there's not a cap, but for the, I forget if they call them development, there's two parts of them under, but the, yeah, development projects. So it's capped at 300K, and I think that it's 25% match. So, which is pretty doable, and, you know, with match, it can be, you know, this property evaluation, you know, that this is the value of it, like that goes into the match, anything, any time that, you know, you would put into it or that we would put into it even, you know, I'll talk to them and see, but, you know, a lot of times, you know, if we're going around and doing, you know, visits and that can be matched for our time, and there's an amount of time, a dollar amount per hour that you allocate to each person. And so I don't, you know, I don't have any issue, and then obviously the township would be putting some funding, you know, we'd have to put some funding in, and at 300K ain't gonna do it. But, you know, I think that starting now and thinking about what, you know, what sort of what, I think getting toward what we want it to look like is gonna take some time, obviously, and then, you know, and then there'll be the process of writing the grant and then awards and, you know, funding and that, you know, I would see it as, start to put a timeline together, but, you know, it would be you know, probably a 2026, I would think, you know, at the earliest type thing.
Sure.
You know, cause we're gonna have this for 2024, year of planning, and then submitting in 2025, and then awards, I think, come out in December, I think they're awarded in December, is usually the timeline for DNR trust fund grants, so. And then I think it's, yeah, looking for other, you know, other grants, not just that, but that would be a big chunk, and I think that if we're gonna go for that, and if we're gonna go for something like this, that we might as well just plan for 300K. I was looking through
Maximum,
what was
yeah.
funded last year, and, you know, basically, you know, I think they did 17 or 19, or I forget exactly what the number was that they did last year, but, you know, the majority of them were at 300K because the projects were big enough that they far exceeded that number.
Yeah.
There were a few for maybe one for 160, couple, you know, I think that was maybe the lowest, but I think it's definitely a 300.
One thing I will say though, you know, this Upton Road property is, you know, this is a great idea and everything. I don't want it to, you know, throw a cover over our Park Lake corridor, you know,
Right.
with our existing stuff now. I think that is a really important key factor in our next 5 years. Along with, you know, getting ideas, you know, in a clear direction on which way we're gonna go. But I think that we still need to focus on that Park Lake corridor.
Definitely.
even though, still plan these out, but that should be our priority. That is my priority.
Yeah, it's a site that's up already, it's a site that gets used
Yep.
a lot, it's a place that people like,
Let's
that they
improve
wanna
on
keep going, it's a,
Yep.
yeah, great space.
So I just don't want a project like this to overshadow that.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
The thing I want to comment about this is that this is kind of like a sports and recreation park. And while I see that as valuable and necessary, but I think like a sports and health or an athletic and health might open us up to grants outside of the DNR and and that might prove beneficial. So I'm gonna look into that and hopefully I'll be able to find something to share where
Well,
that
Would-
might lead.
The idea of putting those, exercise places around this trail as an example, I think is exactly the direction that we're talking about going in.
Yeah, health opportunity, healthy activities.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I just made a note for myself so I don't forget. All right. Agenda, so, if we think about future joint, so moving on, think about future joint committee meetings, it seems like we're saying for sure, planning commission is the next kind of, makes most logical sense. So I'll reach out to Dan, and then maybe this month, we can look and see what other ones, include Friends of Park Lake, or the Park Lake Advisory Committee, it makes sense for us to meet with, and have a joint meeting with, or at least, especially as the, talk about the corridor, make sure that everyone that wants, that should be at the table is at the table and talking about it, we don't want to have that happen, so, and then I think thinking about what other ones, I would love for the Public Art Committee to meet with us, but they have 6 vacancies on that committee right now, and they have for a long time, and so, I love the work that they did at Wiswasser, and I think, but that is not a functional committee at this point. So, I have to look and see what other ones make sense, but at least those 2, so.
I think the meeting with the senior,
Yeah.
center makes a sense as well, because, I know that people talk about a lack of, activities for them in the area, and maybe he's talking to them about what they thought would be helpful and what we could do to, get them more engaged and offer.
Yeah,
I think that would be helpful.
yeah, so that's 3 there, I wouldn't imagine that every month we would meet with a
Sure.
joint one, but if we said, it's already February, well, it's already gonna be February, if we do every other month, that's, February, April, and June, to do those 3 committees, so do we wanna try to set that up, or make some I guess I'll talk to Dan, or I think he's still the chair, see if they wanna do something in February, possibly around the Park Lake corridor discussion. And then, if that goes well, then extend some invitations to the, Park Lake and to the seniors for their other times. Seem reasonable? And then we can see what, what it looks like for the second half of the year.
I also think that the Centennial Memorial coming up would be really good to start planning, because, we can either just let that happen, or we can plan for it, make it really something to acknowledge the significance of it, and so.
Yeah.
If not a joint meeting with them, just kind of asking them to come in and update us and collaborate with us would be awesome.
With the museum.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep, so, and with trustee Hagerman now on the committee, or on the board, that is also helpful to be able to touch base or have, more connection with her there. So that's 2027, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's the
2027.
100-year, I think
That's the
that was
100,
their
yeah,
goal.
Yeah. So that would be us and, well, it would be the museum and probably the school as well as property owner, as the property owners and the school.
It'd be a nice big invite for people.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, that could get June, that'd be August, so there, or whatever, you know, that would, with 4 other meeting with 4 other committees, that would get us into the late summer, early fall, but. Cool. Thank you for bringing it up, that's a good idea. All right, do you want to move on to staff reports?
Sure, I don't have much to report on. We kind
Sounds
of,
good.
kind of talked about what I had on my mind. The only thing I will add is we'll start sometime this spring. We'll probably send out RFPs for Port in Place,
Okay.
since that's a CIP project that got picked up, or ARPA.
CIP,
Sure.
it was
It's
CIP. and
Funded
then
by
it-
ARPA.
Yeah, and then so I think they pulled it off the CIP,
Yep.
right, because it was,
Yep.
they used ARPA funds
So,
for it, yep.
We'll look at getting that done, and we'll try to figure out, I'll meet with some of the contractors and see, what's the best time to do it. I don't wanna do it right in the busy season, like right at the end of the school year or something, when kids are looking for something to do. I'd rather get it done earlier or later in the year, depending on, people's schedule, and, so we'll send those out, see what that looks like, and, I'll be working with Taylor on those.
And do they, for that, do you know, they completely remove what's there?
The proposal that I got, the first one, since they'll be adding, I believe, another 3,000 square feet of, Port in Place to expand it to encompass all the wood chips, so there
Oh,
won't be
okay.
any more
Oh.
wood chips out there.
Great.
They're gonna peel up the existing, they'll check and spot check the base, cause there's, I don't know what material aggregates underneath it.
Okay.
They'll check that, make a determination if they need to dig it out and replace the base, but they'll probably be more on a spot basis.
Okay,
And then probably completely, all the Port in Place will come out.
okay,
And if they do decide that the base is okay, maybe some of because there's actually 2 layers of that Port in Place. There's a base layer, and then there's a top layer, and that top layer's thickness depends on, they call it critical fall height.
oh,
So
yeah,
it's thicker in the spots where you could fall from higher.
okay,
So some of those, along the short playground equipment, it might only be 2 inches thick, whereas over by the taller structure, there might be 6 inches of material.
Okay.
So that base layer kind of depends, and that's what the contractors that I met with were most concerned about, is making sure that that base is, up to standard for their critical fall height.
okay.
Two quick things. I apologize that I didn't get back with you about after the other meeting had fallen through with the soccer club. But did you have any available dates coming up, or if not to put you in a spot, could you maybe send me a couple, so that way we can just talk about it?
Yep.
I'm getting ready to open up registration for the spring, and I just wanna make sure that we can have like a plan in place, like if you were planning on doing it like this spring, if that's what your thoughts were.
So there wasn't much extra money put in to do any renovations in the
Okay.
budget for this year, so it'll be minor
Okay,
if we do anything down there. But we can definitely start talking about it and, maybe budget for next year for a
Okay.
larger scale project.
okay, so we can probably still plan on.
Yeah, I would
having
plan
soccer-
on playing your season this year, and we're
Okay.
probably just gonna do, spot checks and hit the high traffic areas.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense. And it's not so much of a rush that we have to meet
Yeah.
like the next week or so, but. like,
Yeah, I
just
think,
let me know.
I think if we do a larger scale renovation down there, we need to have some bigger discussions on, how much and how
Sure.
much, what kind of funding is gonna be involved.
Right, okay. And then, I know that we're just in January, but just thinking in the upcoming months, you had talked about moving the fishing dock because of so many hooks by the beach area. Is that something that like you're gonna do, or just you're thinking about doing?
At this point, we haven't decided a location for it. I would say we are gonna move it. We just haven't figured out exactly where we're gonna do that yet. I kinda wanna get a conceptual drawing of like our boat launch area first. So it probably won't be this year. But that's definitely something on our hit list that I wanna get that, cause after pulling some of those huge hooks out of that, swimming buoy line, it was kind of an eye opener to like, maybe we shouldn't have this, right? People are still gonna fish there, we can't, you know, completely control that.
Right,
Even though there's no fishing signs, they're still gonna fish.
yeah. I was just curious, and then when Ray was talking about the end of, man, I live on that road, I can't think of the name of it, cause I live on, my address is Park
Duluth?
Lake Road.
Duluth?
Duluth, yeah, when he talked about like, that, like making it more, like managing the area and stuff, is that something like the DPW would think about doing, or would you, cause I know many people in the area who use that, like who live on that road, and I know that they would volunteer probably their time and things, and I was just wondering where your head at.
Yeah, I haven't even put eyes on it, Ray just brought it up tonight, so, he did send me a picture of it, so I know where it's at, and I kinda know what the issue is there now, but I have no idea, and like I said, we'll open that, he's gonna talk with Mark Trotter, the town, or the county engineer, for the roads about it, so yeah, I don't know at this point. If it is something that the county wants to move forward and says, yeah, and there's support for it, and, you know, Karen, you know, the board rec, you know, is there something else other than make that a little walking spot? You know, is there gonna be a parking spot, you know, how, there's not really any plans for it yet, but I'd definitely entertain, you know, exploring that idea, but I think we need to, you know, double check, you know, who owns what, and it needs to be surveyed probably, and,
Yeah, they, just to throw out my 2 cents about it, cause, I was one of the people who got upset when, there was no problem until the new person had bought the property down there. It had always been an area where boats just, we went down there with our kayaks and things, and we went in, or kids stood at the end of the road and they fished sometimes right there. And it was always like a thing that people had done, and as far as my knowledge, like people for years and years had done that, like, and sometimes people even used to back their boats, like bigger boats, and now I couldn't really see that happening, but, they moved, the road commission moved the sign for us, last summer, because the man who lived there put boulders up, and so they had measured from the fence there and said that they had to have like 30 feet clearance or something, and anyways, they told them that they had to move like 3 or 4 of their boulders, and they got moved, and then they moved the sign for us, so it was easier to get the kayaks down there. And I was just gonna let you know that, it is a very used area for people in that, who live right down there, who know about it at least. Like, they take like kayaks and like little boats down that they can move themselves on, like little 2-wheel boat
Right.
things, and so, but it's, people who live on that road are willing to, you know, like mow it and help maintain
Right.
it and things like that, just so you knew, like,
Yeah,
where
and-
we were.
so it's not township property. So I don't, you know, we're probably not gonna get much support from us, or, you know, Karen's approval to say, go take care of this piece of property that's not ours. So it is county road right of way.
I thought that cause it says it's, public access, and so does that mean like public access granted by the road commission then?
So the road, from my understanding, Duluth Street dead ends into Park Lake, and that road right of way goes all the way, and road right of ways are public access. That's how I understand it.
Okay,
So, to me, this is a road commission,
At the county level.
the county
It's
level.
a county level
Yeah.
issue.
If the county wants to, you know, say, yeah, go ahead and you can park down there, but, you know, as far as the township going, putting money, investing it into that spot, you know, for a parking area or whatever it may be, I don't see that happening.
yeah, I don't think that anything really needed to be done to it, it was just an issue when like a homeowner was trying to block people who had used it for, you
Yeah,
know.
and really it's a police issue, because it is a public easement or public road right of way access. You know, they're the ones that are gonna be enforcing,
Sure.
you know, it's the road, so.
Okay, when it's a public access, I just thought, my mind went to that the township owned it and they were the ones who put that there, but it makes sense that the road commission does, and I had spoken with them multiple times, and so it's not a big deal, I just
Yeah.
hope that we can continue to use it, cause it's one of the reasons we loved buying the house, was that we had the access right there to get to the lake, so.
Yeah, I'm glad to meet with Mark about, and for recreation purposes, but, you know, to me, that's a county issue.
Sure,
Which would also be beyond the preview of our committee
Right,
responsibilities.
yeah,
But, I mean, it still could be, you know, in our rec plan, a point of interest or something, we could identify that.
Right, is the other there's the other assets, or I'm trying to remember what they
Yeah.
called that, yeah.
Excuse me, two questions. One is, did we ever get information back from the Rose Lake people? They said they were gonna send us some information.
That would be a Taylor, probably a Taylor question.
the drain
Were you at the meeting, the drain commission or the road, or the
Rose Lake-
DNR?
Rose Lake
The
DNR.
two,
Oh.
The
DNR
DNR.
guys.
Were you at the meeting when the DNR came here? Okay.
Yeah, I think they said they were gonna get back some information. I don't remember what it was.
I think it was about some programming that they were, some classes and stuff that they
Yeah.
had. I don't know. if-
Shooting, or licensing, gun licensing, shoot,
Yeah.
yeah, the range.
shoot,
Hunter safety, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. I haven't seen any, that didn't come to me.
The other question is, where are we on the non-motorized plan?
That would be a Miles
That would be a Miles.
question.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep, I haven't had any part of that.
are they still developing it?
I think I talked to him a little bit about it today, and he said they're kind of in the, they'll be moving forward with it in the next couple of months. So I know rec plan was kind of priority just because of the timeline, getting it in before that February first deadline. And then they're gonna push forward with the non-motorized plan. So Miles will have more information about that.
Great, thank you.
All right, no public comment, no board of trustees rep? Any member comments?
I have my usual question of where the Park Lake Trail, the last we heard anything, your name was prominently mentioned as having something to do with the county,
Drain Commissioner.
drain commissioner and where that's at. But nobody seems to ever come up with any answers to where's it at and when's it gonna move forward.
He told me it was close, and that was like before Christmas, and I hadn't had a chance to speak to him since then, but it hasn't come before the Board of Commissioners yet. So, it's not on our Ways and Means for this one, I don't believe, so it's probably, won't have any information until February, but I can informally speak to him next time I see him and let him know that you're not the only person who's asking about that.
I just, if there's anything that has come up regularly since in the few months that I've been on this committee, it's been that subject. You know, different people have brought up in different ways and in different environments, and I think it behooves us to kind of track that and make sure it's moving forward if it's going to.
Yeah, and exactly, to have like to know where we are before we meet with the Friends of Park Lake Committee or the Park Lake, you know, when we meet with other meetings or whatever, like, they're gonna obviously wanna talk about that, and that's something that's on their radar and things, and so, you know, having an idea would be a great thing to hopefully keep the ball rolling, and I think it would make, Friends of Park Lake also happy to know that we were still on board and we're still moving forward and keeping the ball rolling, and, cause I think it's, I mean, but I live in the area, and so it's exciting to me to think about being a thing happening, so.
Probably be a good person to invite the Drain County Commissioner when we do have that meeting with Park Lake and people as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And we can ask Taylor again too, or I can ask her, I know she's working remotely, these days, but I can ask her, you know, last I talked to her, it was the same thing, it's in the Drain County, you know, kind of Drain Commissioner's court, and
And we're able to attend their meetings too, they had said though, right? Like, would it be helpful, you think, if one of us went there as a representative to ask, like, where was it? And I don't see it on the, you know, on the agenda, but is it something that would be helpful, you think, or?
He says he's close, so,
Okay.
you know, and then the Drain County Commissioner does have his own meetings, public meetings, that could be addressed. But I'm not sure when those are scheduled. But I think, he said he's close. I'm inclined to think that information's coming soon, but the holidays and
Sure.
things kind of, just been kind of a weird transition. But let's keep that
Cause I'd be
conversation
willing
going.
to look and see like when the meetings were and go there, but I don't wanna be pushy too if you think like it's not a good idea.
I think that your time might be used better other places right
Okay.
now, but let's keep that in mind.
Okay. maybe by just sending, like after we talk to, the Park Lake Advisory Committee and, seeing when we might be able to meet with them, and then opening the invitation to him, or just automatically put on his radar, hey, we would love to talk to you about, and have you join our meeting, and then he would already know that, what we wanted to talk about, probably, you know,
And I'll have a definitive response from him by
okay?
the
Yeah,
next meeting.
And my feeling on it is that, you know, as we had asked, I mean, all this stuff was happening before this committee formed. And it seems that, you know, as an advisory committee, which is what we are, that, you know, that this is elevated above our committee level, you know, that in committee responsibilities, that it's at the township talking with the drain commissioner level. So I think, you know, we could check in with the township also, but I would, it's a default to what Dwight had said, that I don't know, one, if it, you know, what's the best use of our time as individuals, and then, you know, I think that if there was something that was a public comment or that type of thing, that I would, based on what the township has said, our role of this committee is in that, is that, you know, going as an individual resident would be one thing, going as a representative of this advisory committee would be something that I would want to have cleared or discussed, or, you know, from, so that the you know, the township isn't like, what are you doing, rec committee, showing up and doing this, we're doing these things, we're having these conversations. So I think that would be something that, you know, if we were to, one, hopefully we have a close answer and don't have to go down that road, but two, thinking of like, you know, making sure that, you know, if it is going to a drain commissioner meeting, that, you know, being, you know, being thoughtful or direct about what is actually being represented there, you know, don't want the township to be like, why is there a rec, you know, the township's not there, and then they're like, why is there a rec committee member there saying something and we're not there, type thing. Does that make sense from a county commissioner standpoint? Okay,
Yeah.
I was trying to think through that as I was saying it, so,
You only push a bowler up a hill so fast.
yeah. All right,
Other comments?
other comments?
Yeah, it's really nice talk today. I wanted to comment though, I don't know if you all have seen Granger Park, but they just put in a new pickleball court. And it's got like a pickleball facilities, but then it's also got like playgrounds, and it's got like rolling hills that kids can roll up and roll down. That's really cool, that you might wanna go see for, you know, just kinda see what else is going on in the area. The other one is that, I'm remembering like a couple years ago, I think it was, like you kind of did some like Facebook kind of posts and such to kind of let people know what's going on the parks, and we've talked about going to the parks again on field trips, and hopefully we can do some of those, but also it just seems like, you know, people don't really realize the value of what's here, and people aren't really using it. So I'm thinking of like ways that we can get out and, you know, just kind of get the word out, continue to get the word out so people know what's out there, is what I'm thinking about these days. And that's it.
Other member comments?
No.
All right, so, motion to adjourn at 7:47. I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
second?
second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, adjourned at 7:47.